It's time for Where You Live with Gene and Tony, the show that's all about owning, buying, selling, renting, and association management. If it involves a home, we'll talk about it. Here's your chance to get your homeowner questions answered. From the Concierge Landscape Studios, here's Gene and Tony.
Needed the shelter of someone's arms, and there you were.
Welcome back to Hour 2 of Where You Live with Gene and Tony. I'm Gene Sullivan.
And I'm Tony Crockett.
And
we're still here.
We're
this
still
second
here.
Hour.
That's right. And if you have some folks, get them to come to the radio. We talked about Cubby earlier, but we got a lot.
We talked about a beaver. We talked about a parrot.
Yes.
Who knows what we'll talk about
Who knows
next?
what we'll talk about next. Only on this show. That's right. Hey, it's good to have you with us. Here we are in Hour 2 of Where You Live with Gene and Tony. We're broadcasting from the Concierge Landscape Studios. We're brought to you this second hour by Extreme Exteriors. Our next story that we want to talk about is entitled A Rogue Resident Usurps an HOA in Their Communication.
I want to point one thing out. This
Yes.
story comes out of Arizona, but we have some local celebrities in our industry that are going to tell us about their experiences with this kind of issue right here in town, correct?
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Crazies aren't just given to other states.
No. And I think it's important for our listeners to know that even though we're gathering these stories from all over the country, these things also happen in the state of Minnesota. They illustrate what goes on here as well.
Yes, they do. But may I say, I really think that it happens less in Minnesota
Oh,
than
well,
in other states.
We all know we're much more rational
That's
here.
right. But, hey, let's give a warm welcome, folks, to two people who've been on the show before. First is a property manager, senior property manager for New Concepts Management, our very own David Schultz. Hi, David.
How you doing?
Good.
Thanks for being with us. And also on the line with us today, too, is someone who's been on probably more than any other guest because he has so
He's
much.
the Tom Hanks of Where You Live.
He's the Tom Hanks of Where You Live, Attorney Dan Greenstein.
How do I respond to that introduction?
You can't. That was pretty superlative,
There's
wasn't
absolutely nothing to say.
Yes.
it? Hi, Dan.
Hi.
Well, I'm glad both of you guys could join us. For our listeners, what I want to do is kind of jump off with a little bit of a story here, what has taken place. This is from the Green Valley News in Arizona, March 2nd, 2012. And the person is writing in the story saying that begins by saying community associations can be a great example of representative government, of democracy in action. Leaders are elected by the people. Decisions are made collectively by a majority vote. Board of directors consistently represent the majority interests of the owners and members. And when this takes place, it is a great place to live. But there are always examples, even in situations where the board's doing everything they can. You have a few people who don't take no for an answer.
Yeah.
And these are what's referred to as the rogue residents. And let me tell you guys about two examples here. One was there was a master plan community in Virginia, and there was a resident who was very disruptive. He failed several times to get elected to the board. He had a significant following. And he seemed to be, when he got together, he was always mean-spirited and very critical of the board, and that was well known. And he did that anytime he had the opportunity. In this example, he ended up putting together a newsletter that was that gave people the impression that this was the association's newsletter.
Yeah, because he mimicked the logo and the format
Yeah.
of the association's newsletter.
But then what he ended up doing was he used this as a forum for his gripes and complaints.
Yeah.
And when something didn't happen that he liked, he made things front page news of how inconsistent the board was, and he was taking pot shots all the time. And it got so bad he was even getting advertising
Oh, he
Wasn't he?
sold advertising for his newsletter. That's
To
right.
get this
That's right.
continued
But
on.
many homeowners thought this was the official newsletter of the Homeowners Association. It was confusing to
Yes.
the members.
Have you guys seen this kind of thing take place before? How about you, Dan?
Well, I haven't seen it take place to this extent where someone published a newspaper with advertising. That is quite extreme. I have seen many cases where an unhappy homeowner attempts to send out their own viewpoints on the association to all their other members, whether it's by email or a newsletter or a hand-delivered leaflet. I've just not seen it gone to this extent.
Yeah. But, David, you kind of have to some degree, haven't you? And you have a story to share with us?
Sure. I've got a couple, actually. Well,
okay.
As far as hand-delivered leaflets, sure, we always deal with that situation from time to time. It's typically the anonymous leaflet, never signed by anybody.
Oh, that's always the truth, yeah.
So which carry even more force because there's this mystery person who's unhappy, and, of course, they're the ones that get the most attention.
Wow.
But, that's part of the thing. You have to eliminate all of the rhetoric. You have to eliminate all of the emotion that goes with the statement and boil it down to what are they saying? What are they accusing the association of? Is it true? Is it false? And respond in kind.
Yeah. So in that case, do you respond and make your response known to all the members of the association? Or, the board?
Yeah, well, for the board, I've worked a situation where a homeowner has made certain accusations against the board, actually even against myself, and sent those into our office to be distributed to the board of directors. We consulted with the board. We created a response, sent the response to the homeowner on behalf of the board and on behalf of New Concepts. And, every once in a while, those response letters, the person gets the response that we feel the truth, and they just may not agree with it, and they're going to continue to ask the same questions because they don't agree with the answers they're getting.
Yeah.
In your situation specifically, what was it that this guy was upset with?
Well, there was a claim of election fraud that at a annual meeting that the election tally was done incorrectly, and that the board of directors were rigging the election, and that with my help. Which,
wow.
It was funny because there was actually two members of the association that weren't board members who actually certified the vote.
So,
well, how were you able to rig it, David?
Well, Dan, I'd tell you, but I'd have to figure that out first.
Yeah.
how would that happen? So there were actually two members who were not members of the board, but members of the association who were registering the votes and tallying the votes and gave an honest count, correct?
Yeah, exactly. An honest accounting and audit of the election results.
Jeez.
At this vote, I tallied the votes with one member sitting right next to me verifying my count, and then a third person, the second member, actually reviewed the two of ours work and verified it as accurate.
What's so difficult in that situation is you do everything right, but anybody can say any crazy thing about a situation. How do you fight against that?
That's the lesson that we all learn out of this is you can't fight it, because as long as the truth will set you free is a saying that I think is important.
Yeah.
As long as you're telling the truth, as long as you're accurately portraying what happened and it is the truth, all the person is doing is asking questions on a continual basis, asking you to change your message and change your answer to something that's less than truthful. And you can't do that.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tony, what I'm finding is that perhaps because of the economy so bad, and perhaps because people have felt they're out of control in many other parts of their lives, I've really seen an increase in unhappy homeowners in associations who become the problem more than part of the solution, because they're struggling to get some control or get people to follow them, or they don't like what they're seeing.
Yeah. Yeah.
And often it's the small 1%
Yeah.
of the people creating 99% of the problem.
Boy, that's the truth. And I think you're right. People are feeling frustrated because they don't have the options that they had 10 years ago.
Sure.
They don't have the option to just put it up for sale and move to a community they like better. They feel stuck.
They feel stuck, and they also have a lot of time on their hands right now because they may not be fully
If they're
employed or employed at all.
I shouldn't laugh, but that is so true.
Oh, yeah, and the worst ones are the people that are somehow they've just barely gotten through law school, and they haven't practiced anywhere. They don't have this thing called experience. Have you seen that happen, Dan?
Oh, in my life, it's a reoccurring theme.
I'm sure.
They're the ones that make it most difficult for an association, don't they, at times?
Well, I can't. It's hard to compare new law students who are advising people that you're doing everything wrong, or simply unhappy homeowners who are complaining that you're doing everything wrong. It's kind of a toss-up. But, and the unfortunate part is the laws don't let us have one day a year when we as a majority can have a vote and require certain people to move out of the association.
Yeah.
Are you advocating for that, Dan?
I'm starting to think about it.
Oh, my gosh.
There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Hey, we've got to take a quick break, guys. Can you stay with us one more segment?
Will do.
Oh, great.
Sure.
We are talking to David Schultz from New Concepts, Dan Greenstein from Bernick Lifson. More about rogue residents. How do you deal with them after these messages?